Interrompiamo le trasmissioni per comunicarvi una notizia straordinaria. Le forze armate tedesche si sono arrese agli anglo-americani. La guerra è finita. Ripeto, la guerra è finita.
All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Buongiorno a tutti ed è un grande piacere fare questa trasmissione con un ospite veramente speciale che andrò adesso ad introdurre. Solo alcune parole, come insomma avrete modo di vedere nei prossimi giorni, nelle prossime settimane. Abbiamo intenzione di fare una serie di interviste e approfondimenti su tutte le principali materie che afferiscono alla difesa e alle relazioni internazionali del nostro Paese. Questo è assolutamente importante e fondamentale. Vi faccio un unico appello, che è quello di iscrivervi al canale. Vedrete che è una cosa che vale la pena fare e che non ve ne pentirete. Chiaramente questa puntata e questa trasmissione avverrà in inglese, per cui adesso switcho in inglese e introduco il mio ospite. So once again, thank you everybody for being here today, and in particular, let me thank Lieutenant General retired Ben Hodges. For the very few that do not know General Hodges, he has been many things. I mean, he has a very long and outstanding career in the US Army, and his latest assignments were here in Europe. In particular, he was the commander of United States Army Europe, and he was the first commander of the Allied Land Command in NATO Allied Land Command in Brussels. But of course, he did many other things in Afghanistan, in Iraq, again in Europe before that, and so a very long and outstanding career. And if I'm not wrong, sir, you are currently within the Center for European Policy Analysis, and you have the Pershing Chair in Strategic Studies. And so, thank you, sir, for being here today.
Well, Roberto, thank you for the privilege of being on your program. I was with the Center for European Policy Analysis for the first 5 years after I retired from the Army. Now I'm living here in Frankfurt, Germany, with my wife, and we focused on U.S. Europe, U.S. NATO, and support for Ukraine. Whatever work I'm doing, those are the three priorities for what we do. I have to say the videos that you opened with of the American soldiers in Italy, and then President Kennedy in Berlin, and then President Reagan in Berlin, very evocative. Really, as old as I am, I still get emotional when I see those. And, you know, the United States has never been perfect, but, you know, we did have this tradition of standing up for democracies and supporting people that wanted to be free. And I hope that we can get back to that.
You're right, sir. I was thinking exactly the same thing. I did that video, you know, collecting stuff, but still, whenever I see it, I get moved. And I hope this is what, I mean, I'm a former Air Force, I would say soldier. I've been in the Army. This is why, I mean, we did what, the little thing, in my case at least, that we were able to do. And What you said is exactly what I would like to be discussing with you today, which is number one, the future of the alliance between United States and Europe. I strongly believe that this is the pillar of peace in the world, really in the world, not just in our two countries, for many, many reasons. And in particular, this is something we should try to protect. Most probably, it needs to change. Maybe we're even late. It should have changed earlier. Maybe probably after the fall of Berlin Wall that, I mean, we just witnessed. President Reagan, things should have been a little quicker, but you know, that's long gone. Still, we need to be working on that. And first of all, I would like to ask you, sir, how do you see the current relations between United States and Europe? And I mean, there are issues. We know that there are. How do you see this this item?
So I would say the relationship has been damaged somewhat. I think, unfortunately, some of our allies are skeptical or uncertain about the current U.S. administration. Questions come up all the time whenever I speak to Europeans about American commitment to NATO, support for Ukraine. And then you've got, it seems to be very difficult economic policies that I think probably cause some damage to this relationship. Now, of course, our alliance, which started in 1949 and has grown from 12 nations to 32 now, has always been this pillar of stability and security. It's never been perfect, but there's a reason that nations are in a queue to want to join NATO, because they see that it provides the best means of collective security. And so I think that the fact that people question, is the United States still committed? That's a problem. And it's a loss for the United States that, even though, of course, every president has said allies should do more, the fact is it's in our interest, America's interest, that we have so many allies that give us access, as Italy gives us access for our Air Force, our Army, and our Navy. That's important for American strategic interests. And so it's a long answer to a very good question, but I hope that the administration will recognize and not waste this incredible gift that we have, which is 31 allies.
Absolutely, sir. And I do have one question. As you know, in Europe, we are undergoing this difficult task of integration. Well, it is difficult. We should not hide it. And there are projects and prospects. My personal idea is that we should start with a few countries and move from that onward. But do you think that part of this new alliance between Europe and the United States should go more towards Europe and the United States more than the single countries and the United States? Because, as you know, historically, this has been debated, meaning the United States, in part, did not see well this integration, at least in some parts, I would not say always. And in other administration and other people said, okay, but that could be beneficial because that would simplify, you know, relationships. And now I think that the road is this. We cannot get back. But how do you see this possible integration, probably in steps? I would not say, with the alliance. Do you think that is something that can benefit the alliance, or do you think that it can create more problems than it could solve? I mean, you live in Europe, so you are very aware of what's going on here.
So when you say integration, what are you talking about?
Well, I also talk about military integration, although, I mean, you cannot really have defense integration if you don't have a common, or at least a basic common foreign policy.
Okay.
But I'm also positive that in all these crazy days that we're living, dramatic days that we're living, maybe there is a push, an external push that our continent needs to understand that it needs to move in that direction. Do you think it's a utopia? And what could be the impact on our alliance?
So, first of all, the thing that has helped keep the peace in Europe for all these decades since the end of World War II has been NATO and the commitment of all the nations to each other for collective security. That's why the Soviet Union never dared to attack, even though they had a huge military with thousands of nuclear weapons. This was the pillar of European security, which is necessary. If you want to have European prosperity, you have to establish security first. And of course, the EU, also not perfect, but that provides a framework for liberal democratic institutions, economic prosperity, and so on. So you need both. But the United States has an interest in a strong, secure Europe because of our own economic interests. Europe as a bloc is our biggest trading partner. So it's in the interest of the United States that Europe is prosperous. But that means for Europe to be prosperous, it has to be stable and secure. So you see how these things are connected. Now, of course, even though we are in an alliance with almost every country in Europe as part of NATO, we still have bilateral relationships, U.S. Italy, U.S. Germany, U.S. UK, U.S. France, U.S. Norway, etc. This is also normal. So you can have bilateral relationships as well for involving different aspects of our shared interests. Now, the key to NATO being a successful alliance is the commitment of all of its members to living up to their obligations of the Washington Treaty, which is more than just Article 5. It's also Article 3, which says, nations basically have a responsibility to ensure that they are able to defend themselves and can help their allies. So this is where, the some people talk about burden sharing, some people talk about 2%, 5%, whatever. But the bottom line is that nations agree by joining NATO to take care of their own defense and be ready to help others. Now, of course, people in Italy will look at the world and the threats in one way, perhaps differently from Finland or Romania or Poland or Norway. This is not something new. And the alliance is trying to figure out how do we address everybody's security concerns. This is where this is the hard part, but this is as old as coalitions for 5,000 years. Getting people that have some shared interests, but not all interests are shared, and keeping people on side in order to make sure that those interests are protected. But this is the job of our elected officials, the president, the prime minister, other ministers, members of parliament. They have to explain to the population why this is in our interest.
Absolutely, sir. And I mean, I think it is, or it should be absolutely recognized that Europe should and can and should do much more in terms of its own defense, because we cannot really go asking someone else to defend us or defend us collectively if we don't start, proving to ourselves first and to our allies that we are serious about what we are doing. I'm hopeful that something is changing at last. I would unfortunately say so. Sir, I would like to switch now to the bigger problem and threat that we have in Europe, as we all know, which is Ukraine. The situation, honestly, seems to be stuck, in a difficult way. It's difficult to see a way out of it, at least at the moment, because apparently Russia does not want or cannot probably step back so easily, and at the same time accepting the requests that they have for Europe would be a precedent that could be really a disaster for all of us. What is your opinion? Is there a way we can get out of this reasonably, or should we just go on?
Yeah. Well, first of all, everybody should be very clear that this war in Ukraine is only because Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2014 when it started, and then the large-scale invasion in 2022. So if the Russians actually wanted peace, they could today announce, we're done, we're going back to the internationally recognized borders of 1991. And Russia could, like everybody else, learn to live inside its own borders instead of attacking and using force against its neighbors. So that this thing could easily be done, but it would require Vladimir Putin to acknowledge that and to do that. I think, unfortunately, he has zero interest in any real negotiations. They have not changed their war objectives at all from the beginning. It's the destruction of Ukraine as a state, and and even the idea of Ukraine as a state. So here, the largest European country, Ukraine, is getting civilians are being killed every night with these air raids. This is the capital of the largest country in Europe, and here we are. I mean, what are we doing about it? And I think that the West, with or without the United States, has got to convey to the Russians that this has got to stop. But of course, it's got to be something with teeth, and that means a real commitment of aid, but also economic pressure on Russia. Russia is only able to keep fighting this war because of its oil exports to China and India that have to go out through the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea. So, and there's illegal shadow fleet vessels. So this is where Europe should say, okay, we're going to stop these. You're not going to be able to sell oil, export oil on these end-of-life vessels. And that's how the EU sanctions commissioner describes them, end-of-life vessels that are environmentally unsound. They're not properly insured. There are things that Europe could be doing if we were serious about helping Ukraine. Economic, not just sanctions, but stopping or disrupting Russia's ability to export oil. If Ukraine were to fail, then you're going to have millions more Ukrainian refugees pouring into Central and Western Europe. You're going to have Russian military absorbing thousands of Ukrainian troops forced into the Russian army. And then within a couple of years, Russia is going to be knocking on the door of Latvia or some other NATO country. And this is going to become a much worse, more deadly situation. It doesn't have to. The combined economies and industries and militaries of Europe dwarfs Russia, dwarfs it. So the only reason that we have not stopped Russia is a failure by the United States to make that the priority, the strategic objective, and a failure by Europe to act in unison to use all of its economic tools to help Ukraine.
Absolutely, sir. That's probably a shame also. I mean, that we will see in history in years to come. And I would like to have a last question for you, because I mean, you also have been in Middle East, of course, during your long career, and we in Italy are immersed in the Mediterranean Sea, so we also have a strong interest in the stability of this area. And this is another area of huge instability. Do you see any possible, once again, peaceful end to what's going on right now between Israel and, let's say, Palestinians, Hamas, or however you want to see it? Because honestly, I don't. And I'm extremely sad about this. At least nothing at the moment that seems viable and ethical at the same moment. I know you. I mean, you've been in Iraq. You've been in many places. Do you think something will happen, or are we going to see for the next, years always the same disaster?
So of course, the situation is very different now than it was, let's say, even a year ago, because of the success of Israel against Hezbollah. That has dramatically changed the situation. The collapse of the Assad regime, that has made things better potentially. And which also means, by the way, significant reduction in Russian influence in the Middle East, so which is a good thing. The Houthis still seem able to cause real problems. They just sank another vessel in the Red Sea, which is not good for any of us. The strikes, both by Israel and the United States on Iran's nuclear program, were significant, although I think more and more experts are starting to say that, yes, it caused damage, it set back the program, but it did not destroy Iran's nuclear weapons program, that there still are some quantities of enriched uranium that are out there in the control of Iran. And, you might destroy a facility, but you can't destroy the knowledge. And so I think this is still going to be a problem going forward. The biggest problem, in my view, and that's the hindrance to getting to something that's longer lasting, peaceful outcome, is Israel, Gaza, and the Palestinians. Hamas, terrible people. What they did on October the 7th was, they should all burn in hell forever. But the thousands of Palestinians, innocent people that are there, that have suffered, so many people killed, the destruction there, how Israel is going about doing this because of the Netanyahu government. And I think it's clear that Prime Minister Netanyahu has no interest. He's made it very clear that no such thing as a two-state solution. And so this is where it's hard to imagine, as long as he remains in power with his very fragile coalition, it's hard to imagine any progress being made. And this is even if Israel is successful in killing most of the Hamas, as well as what they did to Hezbollah, and if they are able to achieve some effects against the Houthis, it becomes more and more difficult for other countries to support Israel because of the way that they go about their operations in Gaza. Israel risks becoming seen as a pariah state, and I don't know that that's a good outcome for Israelis. Traditionally in Israel, the population, whenever their soldiers are deployed, no matter what their political parties are or whatever, they generally support the military operations. But my sense is that most Israelis do not agree with the Netanyahu policies about Gaza, about how they treat the Palestinians. So I think only the United States plus a few other countries could bring about enough pressure or influence to help change this. I just don't see it changing as long as the Netanyahu government is in power.
Unfortunately, I mean, we have to agree. We don't see, I mean, easy way out of this, at least in the short term. And this is very sad, but this is what the reality tells us. Very good, sir. Once again, I would like to thank you for being here today with us. As always, I mean, you told us very interesting analysis and opinion, and they come from somebody that has been really inside, you know, these mechanisms, and so can talk about all of this in a professional and I would say positive way, because I like you. I mean, always our attitude, your attitude, to try to see, you know, the best outcome that it's possible. And once again, let me reiterate my view, but I know it's your view, that we have to do whatever is possible to maintain and possibly strengthen the alliance between Italy, Europe, and the United States. This some people, you know, start to forgetting, I would say, and this is also why I go back to the introduction video that I put. We should not forget what that we had. I mean, 80 years of peace in Europe that never happened in our history, and we have to make sure that this continues in this way. So, again, thank you very much, sir, and it was a real honor and pleasure to have you here today with us.
Roberto, you said it better than I could have. That was very well said. And those videos, I'm going to be thinking about those all day today. Those show what positive leadership can accomplish when somebody is able to clearly articulate a vision and then put their energy into it, all the incredible good things that can come out of it, and building teams and working together. And you know, this relationship between the United States and Italy goes so far back, and certainly I want to do everything I can to promote that and help strengthen that. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you again, sir. And now, thank you to everybody. I will play the outro video, which is Radio London in Italian, just a few seconds. Thank you to everybody.
Parla Londra. Trasmettiamo alcuni messaggi speciali. Felice non è felice. È cessata la pioggia. La mia barba è bionda. La mucca non dà latte. Giacomone bacia Maometto. Le scarpe mi stanno strette. Il pappagallo è rosso. L'aquila vola. Parla Londra. Abbiamo trasmesso alcuni messaggi speciali.